Julian Vance was the top investigator for the Global Financial Crimes Bureau. He didn't chase killers through alleyways. He tracked rogue traders who could collapse a national economy with a single keystroke. For 6 months, he'd been hunting a shadow known only as Cipher. This ghost was bleeding corrupt hedge funds dry, moving billions without leaving a single IP address or digital fingerprint behind. Julian finally tracked the signal to a penthouse server room in Tokyo. He kicked the door open, weapon drawn, only to find he wasn't facing a syndicate. He was facing a woman named Serena. She didn't reach for a weapon or the exit. She just held out a flash drive. Looking at her, Julian realized that if she were the predator the Bureau described, he wouldn't have been able to find this room at all. They met in an underground ramen bar, the steam from the bowls mixing with the neon light. The data Serena showed him that night was undeniable. Julian's own superiors were the ones protecting the syndicate's transactions. Serena's family had been collateral damage in one of the syndicate's previous market manipulations. She didn't want the money, she wanted to dismantle their infrastructure. To do that, she needed Julian's administrative clearance to bypass the Bureau's internal watchdogs. They formed an alliance that night. The investigator and the hacker began engineering a digital heist designed to trigger the very alarms Julian was usually paid to silence. Julian's batch was now a liability. To follow the evidence to the top of the chain, he had to operate entirely outside the legal framework he had spent his career defending. They spent weeks in safe houses, working through the night to build their trap. The isolation of the job made the proximity between them unavoidable. Between lines of code and hours of market monitoring, Julian promised her that when the job was over, he would leave the Bureau behind. They would shed their names and start over where the shadows couldn't reach them. But their connection created a new kind of risk. In an operation where a single mistyped character or a momentary lapse in focus could lead to a life sentence, their emotional attachment became the most likely point of failure. Friday, 3 a.m. Their entire plan hinged on a specific market phenomenon, a massive 4-hour liquidity sweep. During a liquidity sweep, institutional banks inject massive volume, creating intentional chaos. Serena's algorithm hid their transfer within that volume, disguising a multi-billion-dollar heist as standard market volatility. Bypassing the firewall, the USD plunged and the USD-JPY spiked, reaching 80. The breach was instantaneous. The physical world had caught up to their digital maneuver, rendering their technical success irrelevant in seconds. Julian was slammed to the floor, heavy boots pinning him down. He looked up and saw Serena standing by the fire escape, her laptop tucked under her arm. She looked at him, whispered an apology, and stepped out into the rainy night. She was gone before the handcuffs clicked shut. Julian was processed and interrogated. The evidence was staggering. His credentials had been used to crash the market. The money was missing, and his partner had vanished. Sitting in that cell, the weight of the betrayal settled in. He had handed over his life to someone who had used him as a shield to complete her own agenda. 2 days later, the bureau director entered the room. He didn't bring a confession form. He brought a release order. He looked like a man who had just seen his own career end. Serena hadn't stolen the money for herself. She used the liquidity sweep to funnel those billions directly into the personal accounts of the syndicate leaders and the corrupt bureau officials who protected them. She had also scrubbed Julian's credentials from the logs seconds before the raid. By leaving him there to be captured, she ensured the bureau would have to treat him as a hostage of Cipher rather than an accomplice. A week later, a package arrived at Julian's door. Inside was a plane ticket to Greece and a black origami swan. Serena hadn't just exposed the corruption, she had secured Julian's future. If you enjoy thrillers where the logic is as sharp as the plot twists, you're in the right place. Subscribe and turn on notifications to join the syndicate. Next week, we're diving into a heist with even higher stakes. See you in the shadows.